Hi there, you're listening to the Estranged Heart podcast, and I'm your host, Kreed Revere. Welcome back to our returning listeners, and if this is your first time here, thank you for selecting this podcast to listen to. As we begin today's episode, I invite you to grab a cup of coffee or tea, settle in, and listen with an open heart. But first, the regular disclaimer. I am not a licensed therapist or counselor. Nothing within this podcast should be considered or taken as therapy. If you are in need of therapeutic support such as counseling, please seek out a therapist near you. Hey there, welcome back. I am so glad that you're here with me today. Whether this is your first time tuning in or you've been with me for a while, I just want to take a moment to say how much I appreciate you being a part of this community. Before we dive into today's episode, I've got some additional news. Some of you probably have heard already, but next month there are some changes coming for the podcast as well as my coaching programs. So I think the first thing I want to talk about is moving the release day from Sundays to Wednesdays. So be sure to mark your calendar for that midweek shift. And that will begin this coming week on October 2nd. So you'll have today's episode, and then 3 days later, you get another one. So, so that shift will happen. And I'm also excited to add mini episodes to the podcast. These will feature anonymous messages from estranged parents or estranged adult children, quick insights straight from people who are going through this same journey that you're on. And, sometimes we just need to hear another person say, I'm there, or I've been there, or I get it. Totally understand you. Especially when you feel like you're all alone. And I've noticed how many of you really connect with stories about mother and daughter relationships. So I'll be bringing more of that into the podcast and episodes as well moving forward. And that will be expanding my support for parents who are navigating relationships with their adult children who identify as part of the LGBTQ plus community. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So that's for the podcast. For the coaching practice, changes are happening there too. I will be launching a membership program in the month of October and a new coaching program. And all of these are to provide additional support, different levels of financial needs as well. And within that membership program, I'm going to be very active. For those of you who are in the Facebook support group, I've been kind of hit and miss as far as being active in the group, and that will shift and change as I'm trying to get additional support over where I can be active in many different types of groups. So there'll be a group for reconciled parents, and perhaps a group for estranged adult children, and then obviously estranged parent mothers and things like that. So anyway, be looking out for more of that information to come. And yeah, um, I think that's about it right now. There's other things that will be announced throughout the month of October, so stay tuned for that. Lots of exciting stuff ahead, and I'm just grateful that you're on this journey with me. Thank you for trusting me to walk with you as we work through the pain of estrangement and navigation of reconciliation together. I really appreciate it. Okay, so let's jump into to today's episode. One other announcement, reminder. The validation workshop will be on Sunday, October the 13th from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're interested in joining that class/workshop, please send me an email to register, theestrangedheart@gmail.com. Again, theestrangedheart@gmail.com. Validation is an absolute communication superpower. It is it is a thread that runs through all of the work that I do, and it is what I see that allows for the biggest shifts in reconciliation. So, if you're interested in that, let me know. Also, it also applies to all your other relationships. So it's not just about estrangement. It's not just about reconciliation. It can have it can help all of your relationships with anyone in your life. So, again, that will be on Sunday, October the 13th. Send me an email if you would like to register. Okay, so now let's jump into today's episode. Today, I want to speak to you directly, you estranged parent. Okay, I know the pain that you carry, the silence. It's so freaking heavy, right? That loss of connection with our child can be overwhelming. It's felt in our bones. It's felt in everything that we do. There's this veil that covers it all. And it's that disconnection from our adult child. But here's the thing. I want you to know that there is hope and there is a path forward. This episode is about an invitation. It's an invitation from your estranged adult child. They may not have spoken the words directly, but it is there waiting for you. The invitation goes something like this: I invite you to find a way to help us heal. Therapy or coaching might help. To learn more about yourself, a deeper understanding of you will create space for a loving and healthy connection with me. Now, this isn't about pointing fingers or laying blame. It's about unlearning, learning, and growing. It's about self-understanding, and it's about creating a path towards healing that will lead you to a stronger and healthier relationship with your child. So I want to break down what this invitation really means. I get it. I get it. I get it. It can be overwhelming. It seems unfair to be asked to do the inner work when, in our mind, our child is the one who stepped away, right? I cannot tell you how many times I hear parents say, I just want my child to come back. Why should I be the one to change? They left me. And trust me, I hear this so many times. I was once there myself. Yep, they left. If they want this relationship, they're going to have to be the ones to come back. And I could not have been more further from the truth of what healing and a healthy relationship look like than when I stood in that statement. So here's the thing. Your kid is not blaming you. What they're really asking for is a chance to reconnect, but they need us to do some deep reflection first. They're offering us a gift. I know. It doesn't it doesn't seem that way, right? I know I certainly did not look at it that way. Not in the beginning. But it's a gift and an opportunity to rebuild a relationship, but one that is actually based on emotional connection and understanding. And that's the piece that I see parents get a little sideways with. Most times when I ask a parent, You know, what did they feel they did for their child when their child was growing up? And it was, well, I got them into they were in private school, and then they went to a private university, completely paid for. They came out with no debt. I paid for their 2 years studying abroad. I helped them pay for their first house, bought their first car. I let them do whatever they wanted. Our house was the fun house when they were growing up, and we had pool parties and, you know, pizzas and all the things. And that's what I hear. Things. I provided things for them. And our children are now asking us for emotional connection and understanding. And when that is something you didn't experience, because, and I'm raising my hand here, I didn't either. When we did not experience that in our growing up years, it's really difficult to be able to give what you never had when it comes to emotional things. So I had to learn how to be present. I had to learn how to connect emotionally. And that meant I had to get in contact with my emotions. And that's what this is all about. Because generally, a lot of the kids who are asking for this, they are the ones who are in therapy themselves and have learned about themselves and their emotional needs in order to be able to connect with others. So, what your child is saying, in essence, is, I want to heal with you, but I need you to understand me, and I need you to understand yourself. They're asking you to take a look at your own patterns, your own behaviors, and how those patterns and behaviors might have played a part in the distance between you. And yes, I know this is hard to hear. If you're like me, you spent countless hours, oh my God, replaying over everything of their childhood, replaying all the moments over and over in your mind, wondering where things went wrong. But this invitation is about doing it differently. It's about doing something different. It's about going inward and learning more about ourself, right? And looking at life and ourselves and others through a new lens. And that's where therapy and coaching comes in. Okay? It's really, again, this is not something that is taught to us. It's not. We didn't have the books on how to do this, right? We didn't get the manual when they were sent home from the hospital, when they were born. We didn't get it. Okay? So let's take a minute and acknowledge something here. Um, this can feel really, really hard. Um, I've been there. uh, if you're like me too, you react with hurt and anger or confusion when you hear your kid tell you to, quote, go do the work, end quote. You might feel like you've done enough already. Maybe you've tried everything and nothing's worked. These feelings that you're having about that, they're real and they're valid. They're valid. Trust me, you're not alone in feeling this way. My coaching clients feel this way. The folks in my support groups feel this way. But here's the thing. This this invitation from your child is not about punishment or blame. Okay? When we feel that it is punishment and blame, That's our history talking. That's our shit from our past that is filtering into today and how we perceive things. Okay? It's about healing the relationship from the inside out, starting with the most important part of the equation, which is you. Okay? From their perspective, their most important part of the equation is them. We all have to start with us, with ourselves first. So, what does this self understanding thing look like? Well, let's talk about therapy and coaching. These are the two paths that your adult child is generally suggesting. I know a lot of my clients have kids who say, "You need help. Go get some help," or words to that effect, right? What they're talking about is therapy and or coaching. So these are the two paths that your adult child is making the suggestion for your consideration. Both of these are tools that can help us to reflect on our own emotional landscape and how we can gain an understanding of how our past experiences and reactions. Let me say that again. We can gain a deeper understanding of how our past experiences and reactions have shaped the relationship you have with your adult child. Okay? So, therapy, it's a safe space to explore your feelings, your past experiences, your emotional patterns and behaviors. I've worked with many parents who, through therapy, realized they were carrying emotional wounds from their own childhood and previous relationships. Every one of them come back and say, "Oh my God, I had no idea that I was carrying that around, that was actually a thing that happened 35 years ago and was still bothering me today." Okay. Um, and you don't even know that you're carrying it. That's why so many parents are resistant to go to therapy or take part in coaching, because they're like, what are you talking about? I don't have a problem. I don't, that's in the past, and that's where it lays, is in the past. That's where it lies, is in the past, that it's not affecting me today. And I am here to tell you it is. It is. The way that you experienced your childhood is affecting you today. The way that you experienced your 35-year marriage and then you divorced after the kids were grown and out of the house because of whatever, abuse, affairs, what have you, it is still affecting you today unless you have worked it out in therapy. And if you've been to therapy and you're saying nothing was found in therapy, then I am here to suggest that maybe you need to change therapist. Because there's not a human being on the face of the planet that's not walking around with wounds from their past, because you're human. Okay? Once you start understanding these things, it helps you to approach your child with more empathy and awareness. Okay? Coaching, on the other hand, while it's also a safe space, it's a little more action focused. In coaching, we work on setting goals, learning practical tools for communication, managing emotions, and rebuilding trust. Um, Coaching gives strategies you can actually start using right away to create real change in how you relate to your adult child, or anyone else in your life, right? So here's the important thing to remember: therapy and coaching are not about fixing you. And I think that's where a lot of parents get stuck. They feel like Their kid is saying, "You're broken, you need to go fix yourself and then come back to me." And that's not really what they're saying. I know if they have said those words to you, that might be the only vocabulary they have to utilize, but it's not what they're actually meaning. And if they haven't said those actual words to you, but words to that effect, I'm asking you to get beneath that. What is going on for them that they feel they need to tell you to quote go do the work? They're feeling something isn't working for the relationship with them and between the two of you. And so they're asking you to just go figure out what that is. Okay? So coaching and therapy are about growth. They're opportunities to understand yourself better, to work through any unresolved pain, and to learn how to show up differently for your adult child and yourself. Let me say that again. Therapy and coaching are opportunities to understand yourself better, to work through any unresolved pain, and to learn how to show up differently for your adult child and yourself. I've seen it happen over and over again. When parents dive into therapy or coaching, they start shifting their perspective. Instead of reacting from a place of pain or defensiveness, they begin responding with understanding. And that's where the relationship begins to heal. It really, really is. Your adult child wants you to know yourself better because likely they've gone to therapy and or coaching and they are knowing themselves better and understand how much better life is when you get why you're doing the things you're doing and how much more peace they have in their life. They're wanting that for you as well. Okay? This not just for their sake, but for yours too. When when you have a deeper understanding of your emotions and triggers and patterns, you'll be able to communicate with your kid in a way that fosters connection rather than conflict. And I'm proof of that. My clients are proof of that. And again, I hear from my clients that this happens not just with their child, but with their partners, with their neighbors, with their friends. Their friends make comments about how much they've changed and how much more at peace they seem and how much calmer they seem, things like that. Okay. So I want to take a minute and talk about something I hear from many parents, especially older generations. You might be feeling resistant to the idea of therapy and coaching, and that's okay. It's completely and totally natural. Many people, especially from those who grew up in a time when talking about your feelings or seeking help was not common, right? It was not a thing that anybody did. That whole, you know, what happens here at home stays here at home, and we don't quote unquote air our dirty laundry to the world. Okay. Um, it's normal for you to feel hesitation about diving into doing this kind of work. You might be thinking, oh my God, I have managed my whole life, 50, 60, 70 years without therapy. Why do I start now? Why should I? Or maybe you believe that therapy or coaching is just for people who are broken. These are really common misconceptions, and I want to challenge them gently, of course, right? So here's the thing, therapy and coaching aren't about fixing what's something that's broken. They are about growing and evolving. Just like we go to the doctors when our bodies are in pain, therapy and coaching are tools to help us work through emotional and relational pain. It's not about digging into everything that's gone wrong, about, blaming you, pointing the fingers and things like that, but about learning new ways to move forward. If you've never been to therapy or coaching, it's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's normal, it's natural. And you don't have to dive in head first. You can dip your toes in the water. Here are some things that might be helpful getting started. Explore the idea gradually. You don't need to commit to weekly sessions right off the bat. Many therapists and coaches offer free consultations so you can get a feel for what it's like. Just take that first step, right? Read books, listen to podcasts. You're listening to one right now, right? If you're not ready to talk to someone just yet, try reading a book, listening to a podcast on self growth and emotional health. It's a more informal way, I guess, of starting to explore some of these new concepts to you. I'm a big fan of journaling. This was a game changer for me. I mean, I've been journaling all my life, but journaling when I was in my estrangement was, I mean, I don't know that I'd be here if it weren't for my journaling and my therapist. Um, Journaling is kind of like having a conversation with yourself. It's a great way to explore your feelings and patterns privately. No one else has to see it. And over time, you'll start to see areas where you want to see, might want to grow or seek help and further understanding with. Start small. You don't need to tackle everything at once. Pick one area you'd like support in. Maybe it's handling difficult conversations with your adult child or understanding why certain interactions feel so triggering. Start with that. Start with one thing, right? And remember, it's a journey. Growth takes time. Therapy and coaching are just a part of that journey. You get to go at your own pace. There's no pressure to fix everything at once. And it's all about taking small steps towards better understanding yourself and in turn creating that healthier relationship with your adult child. Um, Again, if you're feeling hesitant, it's okay. Remember, keep in mind this invitation from your adult child is coming from a place of wanting to heal, okay? Wanting to heal together. Although therapy and coaching doesn't necessarily have to begin with the two of you seeing the same therapist and doing quote unquote doing the work together. Oftentimes, so often in therapy, I've seen it happen like in marriage therapy where the couple comes in, they're like, "We want to work on this." And the couple's therapist says, "That's a lovely and wonderful thing to do. And I'm very happy to help support you after both of you go do your own individual therapy." It's just the way that it works, right? I suggest this in my coaching. When I have families come to me, a lot of the times I want to do individual sessions with each family member first before I bring everyone together. Because some people just aren't ready for that yet. They're so triggered and there's so much going on inside themselves that they need to work on that before we can come together as a family or as a parent and adult child. So, how does all this work? How does understanding yourself lead to reconciliation with your child, right? You're like, okay, Creed, get on with it. When you start to understand your emotional triggers, you gain insight into why certain conversations with your adult child may have escalated in the past. You begin to recognize moments when fear or frustration caused you to react in ways that created distance. And those are all normal things, by the way. Okay. But it doesn't mean that it's healthy. When you're able to say, I've reflected on some things and I realize how certain moments might have hurt you, I'm committed to growing alongside you. That, that's when trust begins to rebuild for your adult child. Remember that reconciliation doesn't happen overnight. Your adult child is going to need time to see the changes that you're making, and that's okay. The key is to keep showing up, keep doing the work, and keep communicating from a place of empathy and understanding, i.e., validation. Remember the validation workshop on October the 13th, right? Very, very helpful. And, this journey that you're on, whether it's through therapy, coaching, or self reflection, it's lifelong. There's no finish line where everything just suddenly becomes perfect, right? But every step brings you closer to healing, closer to understanding, closer to the relationship you want with your child. Um, every time I've been in therapy for a long time, and I heard someone else talking about this the other day, that they've been in therapy off and on for 35 years. And I said, and how do people react when they hear that from about you? And this person said, oh, people look at me like I'm some really screwed up kind of person if I've been in therapy off and on for 35 years. And I said, and how do you look at it? And they said, ha, it's how I've continued to grow and evolve as a human being. I look at my growth and evolution as a human being on this planet depends on my peeling back the layers of who I am as a person and understanding more about myself, more about why I react the way I do, why I respond the way I do, or don't react and don't respond the way that I do. That I am always learning more things about myself, more things about the people who have meaning in my life. And I was like, yes, yes, that's the whole point. It's not a blaming, it's not a shaming. Oh gosh, you've got to go to therapy because you're a screwed up person. No, therapy and coaching can be used for continuous growth and evolution. And that's a beautiful thing, my friend. That is a beautiful thing. Because when we can unlearn, learn, grow, and evolve, we stop the cycle of hurt and pain. We stop the cycle of unresolved conflict. We stop the cycle of retaliation. And we become more compassionate and understanding and empathetic human beings. And that is what this world needs. So, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with this. Your child's invitation isn't about blaming you, it's about opening the door to deeper and more meaningful connection. It's about growth for both of you. Therapy and coaching can feel like a really big step, and I encourage you to see it and view it as an opportunity for transformation. When you commit to learning more about yourself, you're not just healing yourself, you're paving the way for a healthy, loving connection with your child. Remember, remember this healing is a process, it takes time. But by taking this invitation seriously and doing the inner work, you're making a powerful investment in the relationship with your child. It really is something to be viewed as a strength and conviction you have to repair, heal, and evolve the relationships that are important to you. And I hope that the relationship with self ranks right up there as number one, followed by the relationship with your child. Okay. Thank you for joining me today. If this episode resonated with you and you want to explore coaching, feel free to reach out, theestrangedheart@gmail.com. Or you can reach me through the website, theestrangedheart.com. You don't have to do this alone. I'm here to support you. Don't forget to follow The Estranged Heart for more episodes on healing, estrangement, reconciliation. And until next time, take care. Remember, you're not alone, and healing is possible. This brings this episode to a close. I hope that this time together was time you feel well spent and that you are able to find some takeaway nuggets to help you on your journey, wherever you may be on your estrangement and reconciliation path. If you feel you've received something helpful or positive from this podcast, please consider following us, sharing this podcast with others, leaving a positive review, perhaps entertaining becoming a guest on our show, or following us on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok under the same name, The Estranged Heart. As a reminder, there is an online support group on Facebook. If you are a estranged mom who identifies as being spiritual and approaches estrangement with a sense of curiosity rather than blame and judgment, and desire to do inner self-work and reflection, please seek us out. We can be found at facebook.com/estranged mothers support group. And lastly, if you are an estranged parent or an estranged adult child and would like to have your story shared on the podcast, anonymously or not, please reach out to me via email at theestrangedheart@gmail.com.